I walked down the hallway and she's like, I want you to paint me a 5 foot by 5 foot painting. I'm going to put it right next to here. And I was looking around the wall. I was like, oh, okay, well, we can maybe shift this over. She's like, oh no, we can't touch those. Those are sketches by John Lennon and they're security alarmed into the wall.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Prestige Living Podcast. So with that, who do you want to be? Hello, welcome to Prestige Living, your audio feed for real-life entrepreneurs and business owners right here in Orange County. I'm your host, Jay O'Brien, here with your co-host, Jordan Wilson.
Thanks again, Jay.
One of the things we're going to be talking about today revolves around talent, specifically unknown talents. Throughout our lives, we're constantly trying new things and having new interests sparked. Maybe we dabble for a minute in that specific trade or perhaps choose to further explore the craft pending our ability to accelerate in that arena. And whether it be learning how to play guitar, sew, paint, build, whatever it is, we've all had ideas enter our mind that we have an initial interest in, and probably more often than not, it's just a fleeting dream of some kind that never really gets much attention past the initial exposure. But have you ever had a time where one of these interests clicked? And I mean, not in the sense that it kept your attention and you wanted to pursue it, but where you discovered instantly that this might be something you will or already are really good at. Has that ever happened to you?
You know what, the first thing that comes to the top of my head is ever since I was a little kid, I can think back to elementary school, I got this Harley Davidson book, a book all about Harley Davidsons. And you being a motorcycle rider, you know, I know you've had an interest as well, but it wasn't until 2010 I just came home from work one day and decided I'm going to buy a motorcycle. I had no idea how to ride it. I've just always been interested. And then as soon as I got on for my first safety course, it just clicked like a, you know, what do they say? It took to it like a duck to water, and just felt really comfortable on it and been loving riding ever since, especially with you, Jay.
Yeah, I love riding with you too, Jordan. What about something that's happened where you're like, dude, I really want to do this, or I think I could be really good at it, and then you do it and you're like, no, never mind. I'm not good at that, or I'm definitely not going to pour the time into being good at that.
You know what, in high school I was on the track team, and I always, maybe growing up I had this, I was a fast kid, but in high school I realized I'm not as fast as I thought I was. And I stopped running I stopped running my junior year because I couldn't compete. No matter how hard I trained and no matter how hard I worked, I just wasn't as fast as some people.
Just wasn't for you.
It just wasn't, running wasn't for me.
I remember I had a friend growing up, and he would always bounce around from one thing to another without giving it much time and dedication, and would be frustrated with his inability to be naturally good at whatever it was he was attempting to do. And I personally witnessed this with him attempting skateboarding and playing guitar and a number of different things. And basically, he would give it a few weeks and say, nope, that's not my talent, and just go on to the next thing, waiting for it to just click. Like, oh, I tried tennis, and I'm a pro tennis player. I had no idea. I mean, I suppose there are several people out there who are naturally gifted, but for most of us, shouldn't the expectation be a little more realistic in terms of what it takes to build a talent? I mean, let's not forget the old saying, practice makes perfect, or...
Perfect practice makes perfect, too.
Oh my God, mind blown. Or Malcolm Gladwell's philosophy of 10,000 hours being required to be considered an expert in a certain field, which may or may not be the case. If you're listening to this, I'm going to go ahead and plug Tim Ferriss again. The 4-Hour Chef, a book about learning how to learn. It's amazing. It's specifically geared around meta learning and deconstructing how to become world class in something in a very limited amount of time, defying the 10,000 hour philosophy. Check it out if you've never read it. But yeah, so our guest today is a little interesting. Lori Gilbert. She is a painter here in Orange County, and earns her living solely off of her work. And we'll get into this a little bit in the interview, but what I thought was so interesting in briefly speaking with her is that this talent was essentially unrecognized until she was into her 20s. and in school, and realized that she had an ability to paint and be artistic, which I feel usually comes much earlier on.
Yeah, I've talked to artists before, and they tell me stories about how they are, at a young age, drawing on the walls of their parents' house with crayons and stuff like that. Like, they have that natural, inclination to just be artistic. And this is an interesting story, like you said, like to not discover that until your later years. It's kind of unique.
Absolutely. So, yeah, our guest today, Lori Gilbert, she is painting here in Orange County daily and selling her pieces, doing commission work. She has an upcoming event that we will speak about as well, and has been extremely successful in her trade and has become very popular in the community recently. And without further ado, let's bring her on, Lori Gilbert. Lori, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, this is the first time that we've met in person, but I know you digitally quite well.
Yeah, that's the age of social media. I kind of feel like you get a good vibe for everyone's personality, so instantly you come in. It's kind of cool because we feel like we already know each other pretty well.
Hell yeah. I mean, you come in, I get the hug, not the handshake. It's like...
You get to make fun of your office. I feel that comfortable, and you're like, all right, please leave.
Oh, no. all the people listening are like, God, what does that office look like?
No, it's actually really well done. I just wanted to give him a hard time about something.
Well, I mean, you go to any public stores, they all look the same.
Lori, please walk in. We'll shut the storage unit behind you. Do not worry.
Jordan, get the garage door, please.
Do not worry. Do not ask questions. Do not scream for help.
So you're a painter, and we spoke briefly on the phone a little bit, and I kind of got a little bit of your background, and I think it's awesome the way it all started. But I want to hear it from you. So before painting, what led you to this career right now?
Well, I definitely had a silly coming into being a painter. So I actually got a softball scholarship, and I was doing programming and digital art and graphic design at Canisius College in New York. And after about 2 years, I tore my ACL. Long story short, it was winter, about 10 months out of the year, I was ready to come home. So I transferred to Long Beach. And when I transferred, it was a cliche experience where they lost my transcripts. I was late getting into classes. Literally, I couldn't even get into programming, so they put me into studio art. And I had to take an intro to painting class, otherwise I would not even be able to take any schooling. It was literally the only class I could get into, and my mom brings it up and laughs about it all the time because I was definitely crying, saying, who paints anymore? No one does this. It's useless. Throwing a little tantrum. Anyways, I took that one intro to painting class about 5.5 years ago now, and I fell in love. It was just this really spiritual moment where I just felt peaceful. I'm like, wow, it was instant. I knew this is what I wanted to do, so I quit school and was self-taught afterwards. And I was doing commercial sales on the side, and I read people really well. It's part of being an artist. I'm really intuitive, so I did really well in sales, and then I'd get to come home and paint. And after a few months, I had enough people just through social media kind of asking for work, and I just kind of dove in and had about $1,000 saved up and decided to paint for my living. And at the time, I still was under my dad's health care, and I was like, you know what, this is one time in my life when I have a low overhead. I'm just going to do it, and if I have to go back in the sales force because I can't make it, so it be it, but I'm just going to do it and dive in. And literally everything has just worked out beautifully ever since, and I'm really lucky with all the connections I get, and it's just keeps progressing. It's really exciting.
So from when you discovered this talent of yours and actually quit school to the time where you bet your $1,000 that you could do this, how much time was that in between?
In between when I took the class and I quit my job, probably 6 months. It was really aggressive. I'm not gonna lie. Everyone was like, "What are you doing?" I definitely was not supported. And it was funny. If you would have known me, I'm a very methodical. Growing up, I had a full ride. I took AP classes, 4.2, just had all my ducks in a row. And if you were to tell me I wasn't going to graduate college and quit my life to be a freelance artist, I mean, like I said, it was a very silly progression, but it just intuitively felt like I was doing the right thing so strongly that I just had that faith. I'm like, it's going to work out. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. And I still don't know what it was that gave me that strong intuition, but I just knew it was going to work out, and it has. So,
how long did it take you to get your first paycheck? How long did it take for you to see income?
It's funny, when I first started, I just kind of painted things for myself and posted to them, and if someone wanted it, I was just excited and gave it to them, because it was exciting to just have the idea that something I created, someone would want to put it on their walls at home. Like, just even that idea was the most exciting thing. So I was like, just give me $20 because that's what the canvas costs. So, technically that was my first paycheck, but then, eventually I did a few things and I started charging, okay, well, maybe I'll charge $100 for this. And I kind of got a little bit more confident. So I'd say after a couple months, I had a few people following my stuff, and then they actually approached me for commissions. And I remember my first commission was $200. And it was an Aaron Rodgers portrait. And I was so scared to do portraits, but I just did it. And so that was technically like my first commission piece. And it kind of went from there. And he was on it was really cool, because when people would talk to me about it, they'd see how passionate I was, and they'd see the talent that I didn't see, because I was so self-deprecating at first, because it's hard. Art is an extension of yourself. And even though I was really secure about who I was when I would go into sales, when I'd go about trying to sell my art, in quotes, I was really insecure. Okay, well, I asked for 50, but if you only want to pay 30, that's fine. And when people saw that, half the time they'd end up giving me 75, because they're like, no, like, this is what you should be doing. They're so incredibly supportive. And it was just cool, because people who I didn't anticipate being like that, like this guy who's, did the Aaron Rodgers, he hooked me up with like 4 more commissions. He was like, God, like, people are on a search to help me. And it was just really cool, this community that ended up floating me through those kind of first hard times, because they wanted to see me succeed, because they saw this kid who wanted to paint, and they loved that,
So I have to ask you, you said in the beginning, when you kind of realized that you're going to quit everything and become a full-time artist, you didn't receive a whole lot of support. How long did it take for people to kind of get on board with you and say, okay, you've got us convinced?
Took a little bit still. I'd say probably about a year when I started getting, my first couple grand commission. And I think when I actually had commercial, companies, buying art for me, that was when they kind of changed from, this is just kind of a kid getting commissions, to a professional. I think when people see businesses investigating into your art and investing, that's like the big shift,
Right.
So.
Yeah, you touched on something that I want to kind of elaborate on. So in the beginning, when you said, at first I'd say, hey, this piece is $50 or $30. You were scared to charge too much.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about being entrepreneurs and real estate agents and what have you in any field it's applicable is believing in yourself. And we all say that once you stop believing in yourself, so will everyone else. And we see it every day in our realm, whether it be agents cutting commission. They go on a listing appointment and they don't really see their own value as much as they should. They've already lost it, right? So they go in there and they say, it's a 6% listing or 5. I don't want to lose it. Well, immediately now you've devalued your services. And I think painting, it's the same thing. At this point, you've evolved so much in such a short period of time in your painting career that you're able to charge, for lack of a better word, a premium for this work. And the fair market value has gone up, and people are starting to perceive that as real.
Yeah, and if you don't see the value in your own work, how are other people going to see the value in it?
Yeah, I think, it's a really good point, because I still struggle with that, because, I try to approach a fine art realm where fine art is pure perception. There's artists out there where their demand is so high, and that's what drives their price point up, but then their technical skill doesn't necessarily follow along with that demand. So with the art world, it's all about perception. But I think that comes back to any business. No matter what the product, people can say I'm insanely talented, but if I approach everything like I'm desperate or really insecure, people read that. And I think it still goes back into like just a societal thing. When people, it's Darwin, when people sense that you're insecure or unsure, they feed off of that, and vice versa. Like if you approach confidently and have this pure passion about yourself, people, I do feel, not to sound too artistic, but I do feel that everyone runs on energy, and whatever you put out there, that strength exudes. And your price point, if you're confident, you're gonna sell your worth, and that's where I've been able to bridge the gap of, I look back at, as much as I didn't like commercial sales because I just get so drained, it is an amazing skill set I had, because I finally made the connection between my outside sales, I call it a personality, the way I'd approach people and read people, and applied it to my approach with sales with artwork, because it is all the same. It's sales, having a confident outlook, and that's what makes people want to feel secure in their investment with you. And when you sell them on that and that you're worth it, they read off of that. And so no matter the product, you do have to be strong in that, and you also have to be willing to not have the fear of losing people if your price point is a little bit out of their spectrum. And that's been the struggle for me, because I was so grateful to have people wanting to buy pieces from me that I didn't want to charge too much and not give someone a piece. And I had to get over that, because as my demand goes up, you do have to keep your price point at a certain point. You will have a few customers who can't afford you. And it's a hard line, because I don't want to have an ego about myself, but I do want to be smart business-wise. So it's always a tightrope you're walking on.
And that's kind of why we're in this storage unit, is because we have your paintings just lining the walls, and there's no money for anything else.
We spent money where it mattered.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's basically a giant vision board around us. So, okay, the fair market value. What is the average or going rate for a Lori Gilbert original?
Well, I keep it actually at a per square inch, but on average, I'm doing about 30 by 40 paintings for $4 or $5 grand right now, and I do have the stipulation with people, like if it's a portrait or a landscape, I do vary the cost a little bit according to time. So I actually have very much kept it a business approach, where I keep it per square inch, I keep it time, and that's really how I found my price point.
Go ahead, Jordan.
I was just to say, one of the things we always talk about in this office is, no matter what you have going on, like, always be putting stuff in the pipeline. How many projects do you typically have, like, on your horizon at one time?
It varies a little bit, but most of the time I'm lined up for 4 or 5 months at a time.
How many hours a week is that? Varies.
It varies. I've become disturbingly efficient at painting, and I'm a little hesitant sometimes to divulge how long things take me. When I first started, things would take me about 2.5, 3 weeks, and I've actually been able to complete a painting in a day. But I also tell people that, this is 5 years of experience that's going into each painting. It's not necessarily the time, but I have been able to, I have a very good predictive ability as far as how long projects are going to take me. So I'm pretty accurate with people. I can tell them, okay, I'm going to start this on this date. So I try to line up about 4 or 5 paintings. I guess aggressively, I have the half up front payment. They're starting on this date. And then I would say I have about 6 or 7 people where we're kind of going through ideas, it's in the works, and the date I'm actually going to start is kind of flexible. And that's the beautiful part about art. Unless it's for a wedding or a gift, usually I can kind of do it at my own leisure, even, I'm producing all the time. So I do get to be a little bit flexible, but I always have I'd say about 15 people in the works for my pipeline. And, I always make sure I have that business coming in, because I do live off of per commission basis. So, as far as anxiety levels go, I always have that lined up, because it makes me feel like I'm going to eat.
Yes, we are in that exact same world. You brought up an interesting topic. Okay, so in terms of time that it takes to complete a project, and how people naturally gravitate towards, well, how long did it take you? They're identifying time with value, and for me, I think the two are irrelevant when it comes to a specific trade. An example, I used to work on computers maybe 10 years ago, and someone would come in, and to install just a memory chip in a computer takes me no more than 2 minutes, and we would charge people $40. Mm-hmm. And we were always hesitant to do it in front of them, or to say, yeah, come back in 5 minutes, because psychologically people don't feel good about paying $40 for 5 minutes worth of work. But the point is, you're paying for a skill that someone has that you don't, and therefore time is irrelevant. Yeah. And we see this all the time in our world now in real estate. Someone says, how could you earn a $30,000 paycheck on a deal that took a week to close? You earned $30,000 in 1 week. How can you feel good about that, or how is that just? But there is so much more that goes into that. I mean, to your point, your 5 years of experience as a painter got you to be able to paint that caliber of work. And for us, it's the same thing with our level of skill with negotiations and everything that goes into it, that I feel like you cannot quantify time and measure it against value when it comes to these very specific trades. But it does interest me because being an entrepreneur and you're a businesswoman, start to finish, on average, can you say, not just for what the work itself is, but I mean every little bit that goes along. So to get the client, to buy the materials, to conceptualize it, to put the time together, to physically do the work, package the whole thing, roughly, can you say total how many hours that might be?
Well, huge variation. Like, I had Western Digital commission me to do a few pieces and an interview, and that whole process took about 9 months, start to finish, because I had to get in their corporate structure. But then I had a client drop off last week for whatever reason. Their car broke down and they didn't have the money for a painting, and I had to fill them in. So, I quickly had someone in my pipeline, said, hey, I'll cut you a deal. I really need help on this person dropped off. I need to fill my spot. I'll drop it $400 if you fill the spot. It'd help me out and I'll help you out, basically, and that's where the sales side comes in, and start to finish that took 5 days. So it's a huge variable.
So when you say 5 days, is that 24 hours times 5, or is it 5 hours per day, 8 hours per day?
I'd say about 5 or 6 hours per day. I do stints. Like, I'll go and train really hard in the morning, and I'll paint for 2 hours. Then I'll get a little antsy and take a little break, and then I'll do another 2-hour stints. It's usually about 6 hours a day. But I'm so incredibly intense when I'm actually in the zone and painting. I need to do it in about 1.5 hours, 2-hour stints. But the productivity I can within those 2 hours, if I'm really focused in a good mental space, I can, start to finish complete like half of a landscape, because I've gotten, I've completed about 450 paintings in the past 5 years, which seems astronomical, but I literally have just pushed myself and wanted to get my technical skill up. And in the beginning, especially when I needed to paint every 3 or 4 days, I was producing, because that's how I lived. It's really forced me to be able to get myself in the mental space of paint every single week, and I don't struggle with that now. It comes naturally.
And I'm seeing on your website that you have a specialty of waves, right? Can you dwell on that a little bit?
Yeah. If people who've kind of followed me from the start, just my friends, my work was very eclectic, because obviously I was doing wedding portraits, commissions, landscapes. I was doing anything that someone would pay me to do. And I was lucky because I've noticed that there aren't a lot of artists who can vary their style. I could do an impressionistic painting and do someone's boat in Catalina and vary my style and bring in colors for their home. And that was why I was able to get as many commissions as I was, because I could vary it for each customer. And I just lost myself. Where was I going with this? Oh, and why I chose the body of work of wave. So my point being is that in the fine art world, you need to have a focus. And it was great that on a business side, my portfolio was so diverse, because I could really reach out to any client. My customer base was massive. However, if you want to inflate your pricing in the fine art world, you have to have a subject matter and focus. And I met with an amazing curator, and she gave me the advice. She was like, where you really succeed is the way you portray liquid and light. She's like, I really think you need to get yourself in a space whenever you can, build up a body of work with this, because I really feel like you excel in it. So over the past year, I started focusing on waves, because I feel like that's what really set me apart from other artists, that I could do it that well. And so I wanted to focus on that. But the reason also from a business standpoint why I chose waves was because, I loved the idea. I just said this in the interview with WD, was I love the feeling in anyone, as far as age demographic goes, whether you're an adult, a small child, when you stand above a body of water and you sit there, it is this tranquil, serene feeling, whether it's the ocean, the sound, whatever it is. I think everyone can relate to being in front of a body of water and feeling that peace. And so I love the idea that someone could take that serenity and have it in their living room. And so I painted a couple ways, and people are like, yeah, I just wake up and I see that sunset in my house, and it just like puts me at ease. And I was like, wow, what an incredible thing to give people. And also from a marketing standpoint, I could put that work in hospitals, psychiatry offices, businesses, homes. Everyone can resonate with it. So I still keep that broad audience, which had floated me for so long, and still having it something that's my specialty. That's kind of why, I concentrated on that. And then not to mention just being in Southern California and painting waves from the coastline was an extra kind of, industry to tap into, as far as the surf art industry, which is all based in Huntington, Costa Mesa, Newport, which could be an extra avenue for me, because, I never know where my business is going to take me. But, maybe Hurley will see some of my images and want to put it on their shirts. And, I don't know. We'll just see what happens.
What percentage of your work is Waze versus other like commissioned work?
I'd say about 10% now. It's just been my more recent focus, but it's only been the last 6 or 8 months that I've really been doing Waze. But before that, it was all over the map. So,
okay. So, getting into this, and for you, it sounds like you've already seen a lot of different successes, especially just diving right in and making it your full-time job and your only source of income, correct? Mm-hmm. So, with anyone starting a business, the idea is to ultimately be successful in that, but we always hear about all the failures along the way. Have you experienced anything so far that have been either major setbacks or things that you would classify as failures that have helped you grow?
I would never classify anything as a failure because I've been very lucky, I must say. I've been very lucky where I've had almost, I'd say 98% of my customers happy. I've only had to redo a very small percentage of things. But even the ones that I had to redo, like the color palette wasn't quite what they were wanting for their home. I worked with an interior designer where the reds needed to match and it wasn't quite there, so I had to go back into it. So I wouldn't even consider that a failure. It just it set me back timeline a little while. But I guess my only advice starting out, looking back at what kept me afloat in those kind of, I guess you'd call them desperate, when I was like, okay, how am I going to make rent? I need $100. What am I going to do? Is talking to other artists, and what kind of makes me frustrated sometimes is like, you just need to be willing to just get in the mud, like do whatever you need to do to stay afloat, and any opportunity, just be open to it. And yeah, sometimes things don't pan out, and I can't tell you the amount of times where I got really excited, like someone's like, oh, maybe I could get you to do this, and it doesn't work out, and you get bummed. But I've always from the start, just any opportunity, been very aggressively going after it. And I don't have any ego. Even still, like, yeah, I'm doing all right, and I'm actually making decent money now. But, if I ever got in a desperate place, like, I'd be like, shoot, I'll paint a baby on your brick wall because that's what I'm going to get paid to do. I just think you need to be willing to sacrifice whatever it is to keep your dream alive. And sometimes, back to my point about sometimes I get frustrated with people when artists are asking me advice because they're like, well, I don't want to do that because that doesn't, that's selling out, or that's doing this or that. And I think it's really important to not have an ego about your work, because you need to stay grateful that you are able to make a living doing your passion, even if it's maybe, I did stripes on a studio cycle wall, and I was literally like a house painter. Like, I spent a week in the sun doing just straight stripes when I'd kind of been in the fine art realm, but it was something where I could make money, it was good exposure, and I had a good attitude about it. You just need to be willing to do anything, and not keep your ego at present.
Yeah, attitude is absolutely everything, especially when you're the only one driving it. You're not clocking in, you're not going somewhere where there's security, or maybe that sense of security that a paycheck is on the horizon regardless. I mean, you have to go out there, you have to earn it, and positivity is absolutely imperative. We see it every single day in our realm as well. And with that, on the flip side of things, what are a couple major successes that you've experienced where maybe it was an event or a client or something, but that one moment became salient as, wow, this so far is one of the biggest milestones in my painting career to date?
The coolest actual kind of milestone was, back to kind of being all about positive energy and people, and how, people resonate with me a certain way. So I was in this framing shop, and this woman walked in, and she ended up being the former owner of Orange Coast Magazine, Ruth Coe. She started the magazine, sold it for $10 million, is just, talk about a businesswoman. She was written up in Riviera for being Entrepreneur of the Year. She's amazing, but the most generous, kind, humble human being. Anyway, so she walked into a framing shop, and I just ended up, I just looked at her, I'm like, there's just something about her. I went up to her and started talking and showed her my artwork, and she was like, I really want to help you out and commission you. Come down to my place in La Costa Golf Course that's down in Carlsbad. So I went down there, and she just has this beautiful home. Gold-plated bathroom. Ridiculous. And I walked down the hallway, and she's like, I want you to paint me a 5 foot by 5 foot painting. I'm going to put it right next to here. And I was looking around the wall. I was like, oh, okay, well, we can maybe shift this over. She's like, oh, no, we can't touch those. Those are sketches by John Lennon, and they're security alarmed into the wall. And I was like, wow, okay. So I ended up doing this 5 foot by 5 foot painting. Is right kind of like 6 months after I started, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so she has money. It's a 5 foot painting. Okay, I'm going to charge her $400. Oh my gosh, I'm going to charge her $400. And so I asked her, I was like, and I was really scared. I still laugh about it. She makes fun of me still. And I was like, okay, Co, I think I'm going to charge you $400 for this. But if it's too much, just let me know. And she starts laughing. So she sends me a check for, I don't want to say it's a couple grand. And she's like, I want you to paint me 2 different things, maybe 3, but I want to help you out. I really believe in you. So I did this painting for her, and she's kind of a mentor now, but it came right as a time when I really was getting super close, couldn't make my rent, and she just sent me more money than I made with art in 6 months. And she's like, I believe in you. I really want to help you. And she's hooked me up with a couple different people, but coming back down to her house and seeing my painting up next to her original John Lennon's and having this incredible woman just believe in me like that. And she still checks in. I've spent the night at her house a couple times and just get dinner with her, and she's just become a really good friend. She's like, I just see something in you that I saw in myself. And like, that was like a big pivotal changing point where I came from the scared little girl to charge things to like, really, I'm like, wow, if this type of woman sees something in my work and believes in me, like, I need to start seeing that. And that was kind of the shift where I kind of brought in my old, I guess let's call it my confident sales personality into my artwork, and stopped being so scared about it, and just kind of started really going after things aggressively. So I think it was a big kind of pivotal point in my career when, that happened. But that was when I remember driving back along PCH with like all the windows down and just smiling like, oh my God, that just happened. Okay, cool. Like, it's so cool.
That's incredible. So you mentioned these John Lennon sketches. Who are a few of your favorite artists?
I get asked that all the time. I mean, I follow a lot of photographers. I love Clark Little. I mean, it's kind of cliche. He's like the number one wave photographer. Peter Lick has a few galleries. Yeah, everyone.
I went to the Peter Lick Gallery in Vegas and was just blown away over there.
Did they do the dimming lights thing for you? And the way they mounted and everything's beautiful,
yeah,
right?
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I find him very inspiring. But, honestly, I love a lot of the old Impressionism masters. Like Monet's color palette and the way he does brush making is really interesting. Chloe Early, a couple more modern day painters. Chloe Early, there's this gallery in LA called ThinkSpace that has a lot of amazing artists. This woman, Chloe Early, who I admire because she is one of the few artists who, something I want to do with my work is she bridges that gap between really interesting mark making, impressionism, and then throwing in hyper real elements. So she'll render this gorgeous woman and then put it in this magical, impressionistic, expressive background. And I think that's something where I admire because I want to take my work there, because it's really hard to bridge those two elements together, and she does it so beautifully. So she's someone I really admire. So
that's awesome. Do you do any art besides painting?
In what regard, like graphic or?
Yeah, graphic design, drawing, sculpting, anything like that?
I used to, because I was a graphic design major and programmer. I used to do kind of business logos and stuff on the side, but honestly, I have so much work lined up with painting that I literally only paint now.
So I've known a lot of people who have been in the fine art realm, and there's a couple of people that come to mind right now who paint and are extremely talented. But of all those people that I can think of, this is more or less a hobby for them. And I think that if they knew that they could do it full time or make a living off of it, they would probably make that shift. But just like with anything entrepreneurial, and we see this every day in real estate, people are scared to make that jump. And you're basically embracing discomfort, and you're betting wholeheartedly on yourself. Even though you've got the product, and you've got the talent, you're still scared to make a move and go all in, so to speak. What would your advice be to people out there in that situation that have that talent and have that passion, but are maybe afraid to make that move?
That's a good question. I was just thinking about what a catch-22, because it is true. It's already such an anxiety-driven situation to just dive into things without having a safety net. And artists, typically have the propensity for anxiety as it is, even in a secure situation. So it's ultra scary. But, for me, I was just thinking back, I'm like, what was it that just really made me do it? And beyond feeling like it was what I wanted to do, when I was doing sales and the way my world was structured, I had everything in line. I had my 330i BMW, had my corporate boyfriend, I lived in a nice apartment complex. I just had everything on paper I thought I wanted, and I was just miserable. I remember coming home from doing sales and just crying and feeling like, God, like this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. This isn't I don't feel rewarded in this. It doesn't feel right. And I would just come home and I just felt numb. I'd go to bed on Sunday night picturing the office in the morning. I was depressed. And what I thought to myself I was like, painting, if I could ever find that dream of painting for a living, how happy that would be. It's worth diving into. And I'd rather, have to go back into the sales world and be like, I tried it and it didn't work than ever have not tried. So, I don't really know what the best question is. It's just, you have to picture what you want your world to be. And if it's worth it for you to go through diving in and maybe struggling, or, I ate canned tuna for a little while and didn't have money in my account. Like, you have to be willing to do those things to have your vision of your life. And it's, you can live in the world of safety, but you're going to sacrifice what your optimal happiness can be. And it's really up to you what's worth it,
So on that note, I've got 2 questions. Number 1, do you still drive that same car? And number 2, what the hell is a corporate boyfriend?
Yeah, well, I'll have to elaborate on that. No, because as anyone knows, BMWs, when you're making about $1,000 a month off a painting, when you have to take your brakes in and it costs twice that, I got rid of that and got the most economical thing possible because, set myself, even though I was hoping to do well, I also set my overhead as low as possible. So I traded in and paid off my car completely. And that was, again, which is worth it, painting for a living or having my hot little 330i, not worth it to me. So, I definitely set up a few things in my life to be as low overhead as possible so that I could paint. And corporate boyfriend in quotes, and it's nothing to knock people who are in that realm, but as an artist, I realize that I communicate in a different way, and I need someone who is intuitive and works and can understand when I'm like, oh, that person's energy was a little dark, and I need someone to read people the way I do. And it's a way to relate to people. And it was more of, I had, my point being with that comment was when I was in college, when all my ducks were in a row, like I just, on paper, this is what I wanted my life to be like, and it was this guy who did this job and had this structure and was stable, and I just had this idea of what would make me happy, and it was a hard pill to swallow when I had all those things that it wasn't what was supposed to serve me and it wasn't what was making me happy. And I think that's hard for people sometimes, is to reevaluate and deconstruct some things that they thought would serve them,
Yeah, and I mean, you really hit the nail on the head, because one of the things you brought up, it revolves around sacrifice. And we talk about this all the time on the show, in this office, that if you're serious about this, your lifestyle is going to change. It's not like you say, hey, I want to bet everything on this trade that I'm so passionate about, and then tomorrow I'm going to be the best person at it and I'm going to be rich. That's far from the truth. And your car example couldn't be better. I mean, yeah, it's great. I drive a BMW and things are great, whatever. But do you want to keep driving that car and be crying in anticipation of the next day at the office, or do you want to love your life and drive a different car that doesn't even matter at the end of the day? And we need to see that sacrifice and recognize it as a requirement in every aspect of that sort of transition, whether it be where you live or who you live with, right? Sometimes people will move back to their parents' house in order to reduce their overhead so that they can propel forward. Or trade in their car, or eat canned tuna, or any of these things that really demonstrates how serious you really are. I mean, you can't, if you think that you're destined to be an entrepreneur or a business owner and you just don't want to give those things up, oh man, you are just not cut out for the gig. And it's not just material items that you'll be sacrificing. It's time. It's time with your family. It's time with your friends. It's sleep. These are all things that, the comfort goes away real quick if you want to get serious about it. So I think that's a perfect example. In fact, on that note, one of the things that I always like to ask people is, what is your morning routine? What does it look like? Everything's kind of consistent usually when people wake up in the mornings. You've got your things in play. I'm always interested to know what people do as a part of their morning routine.
Yeah, I'm actually suspiciously structured for being a freelance artist because I wake up at 5:30 every morning. I turn on the Channel 5 news. I have this mushroom coffee, and I sit, and then I write in my journal what I want to do that day and what I'm thankful for. And then I go and train my face off for like an hour and a half, completely exhaust myself, and come back in a relaxed state, and then paint for 2 hours, and then I'll do my lunch at home or Whole Foods or network, and then I'll come back and paint another 2 hours, and I'll go on a run and do something kind of. I'm a really ADHD kid, so after sitting and painting for 4 hours, I need to get out and work out again or do something. So I usually go on a run, do some type of cardio, have another snack, and then paint for another 2 hours. And literally, that's pretty much every single day. My friends make fun of me because I never know what day of the week it is, because literally it's kind of what I do every single day, and I'm super happy doing that every single day. And that's pretty much it. It's simple, but my life is great.
I mean, it's like that. We always say if you do something you love, you never have to work a day in your life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh darn, I have to paint today.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And the common denominator for most successful people that I've come in contact with, and so far every guest on this show, is the early morning wake up. So far, and I think I've seen it in various different fields as well, but that's part of it, is kickstarting the day early, and you feel different. The energy is different when you wake up at 8, 9, 10. Your body, I feel, is not as energized. Mm-hmm. And so that's always interesting. So far, out of all the guests that we've interviewed, they've all woken up between 4 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Every single day, and had a morning routine in place. It wasn't just, I wake up and when I get out of bed, and it was all very, very structured. So I find it really interesting.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, I kind of agree with you, because the more I actually end up networking with, like I said, I have sometimes with artists I don't have as much relatability as I have with entrepreneurs or CFOs. I kind of resonate with those people more, but a lot of the time I find that they're into health and fitness, and they take care of themselves, don't drink a lot. I mean, drinking is kind of not necessarily a strong correlation, but for me, I never drink. I drink a gallon of water a day. I'm super into health and fitness because I realize that my cognitive function, as far as focus and ability, is a strong, strong positive correlation with how I take care of myself. So it's been extra positive reinforcement to kind of keep my health in line, and I eat, my 5 meals a day and pay attention to my macronutrients, because I've seen, in my focus, how much that makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. I completely agree, especially when you mention cognitive awareness and clarity in energy and everything that you do every single day. The two are absolutely related. So you've got an upcoming event. It's called Liquefy, and it's April 12th. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, this is just because of the position I've been this first year, this is the first time that I've actually I've taken, a week or two every month for the past year to paint these waves and keep them as a collection to display April 12th at the Boathouse Collective, this amazing, it's like Restoration Hardware made a restaurant. It's this amazing, amazing place, really artistic, cool, kind of upscale. And Western Digital, because they did this project with me, they had an artist program, and I just asked them, I was like, look, I really want to do this show and, make it amazing. What do you guys want to sponsor it? And they ended up being a backer behind it. So they're bringing in a band and bringing in a photographer who I've painted a few things off of, who's just this incredible human being who's just kind of getting started. Doesn't really know how to market too much, but just an amazing, amazing good person. So I'm bringing him along too. So anyways, it's going to be 7 to 10, April 12th, and it's all my waves. And my buddy's going to kind of mix music, smooth stuff, not like DJ set, bring on this band, and just have it a great time. And I wanted it to be, my whole idea with it was, when people think of art shows, they go to these stuffy galleries, they walk around, they leave, and then go do something fun. And I really wanted to bridge the gap of having a fine art show, with nice pieces, but then later on the night have it a fun environment. So it's welcoming to everybody. You can have the entrepreneur who's looking to invest in art, but then I want it to be a fun event. I want people to have a great time, enjoy the artwork, and have it more of a social event rather than the stuffy, what the classic idea of an art show is. So that was kind of my idea behind. We'll see what happens. It's just like anything. Hopefully people come and have a great time, but I put a lot of planning into it, so I'm very excited about it.
Can people purchase your artwork there?
Yes. I'm having prints and all the originals up for sale.
How many pieces do you think you'll have there?
About 12, and then 5 or 6 prints on hand, and then you can order them too.
Awesome. Okay, so that's April 12th, and that's at the Boat Collective in Costa Mesa?
Yeah, the Boathouse Collective.
The Boathouse Collective. Okay, from 7 to 10. Mm-hmm. And that's open to the public? Do they need an invitation or anything?
No, 7 to 10 is open to the public. 6 to 7 is a private invitation with an open bar for kind of past collectors and galleries and such. So
podcast hosts.
Podcast hosts who I'm trying to buy their love with free alcohol. So,
well, that will work. Okay, so wrapping up here, where can other people listening to this, where can they find you? Website, Instagram, if someone wants to order your work, look at your work, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I love having people, I love having my little metaphysical talks, and I kind of do little video logs every now and then, just these little things that I collect on the way from people. So I love it when people follow my Facebook, Lori Gilbert Art. My Instagram is also Lori Gilbert Art. And then to check out, I have an online store, my website. I just updated it actually for the show. It's LoriGilbertFineArt.com. So any one of those 3.
Lori, I have a question for you, just to go back a little bit. You mentioned, when I'm in the zone. How do you get, what does your zone look like? Do you listen to certain music? Do you have certain lighting? What is your zone?
I just kind of turn on music, and actually I haven't had too many people watching me paint, but actually more recently I started dating someone, so he's watched me a few times. He calls me a mad scientist because I turn on my music, I just have my painting in front of me, and I kind of turn off my brain, stand up and just kind of sway to the music and just flow through it. So that's kind of what it looks like when I'm in the zone, and I don't pay attention to anything around me. I'm not that snobby about lighting. I just need to have my music on, have my headphones on, and I just need to turn my brain off. And that's why I work out so intensely, because I am an artist where my mind spins so much that I need to kind of exhaust myself. And I paint better when I don't think. It's the most interesting thing.
What's your go-to music?
Lately I've been into, if you know, Flume. Ben Gilbert from Death Cab for Cutie always kind of does it. Just really nice, mellow, pretty lights, kind of more synthetic, Fantagram, the XX, kind of an indie, but, mellow, a little electronic, just things that I can kind of float along with,
And one more question I wrote down here is now that you've been in it for a while and you've found success, how are you out there looking for, how are you getting new business? Do you rely on word of mouth? Do you rely on social media, referrals? How are you going about looking for new business?
Honestly, I would say about 95% comes through social media. Facebook, people private message me asking about commissions, a little bit from Instagram now. I'm seeing a little bit referral basis, but literally it's still about 95% from Facebook, my personal page. So it's just people who follow me and ask for work, and that's why I'm really thankful when people share any paintings, or when people have gotten something and they are proud of it and they share it on their page. I'll get a couple people asking about things. So that's really, like I said, I don't take all the credit for doing well, because all these people that have shared things or supported me and talked about me, that's how I stay afloat. So it's been mostly social media.
Okay, so now I have kind of a funny question. Okay. You don't have to say what it was, but was there ever a commission that you were just like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to paint this?
Yeah, there's only been one that I have not done, and it has to do with a portrait of someone. But there's been a few people, well, I'll just leave it as this type of ambiguity, but it's been, my response was, my price point is directly correlated with your BMI.
Oh no.
I'll just leave it at that.
Don't they call that Rubenesque?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, Lori Gilbert, you can find her on Facebook, LoriGilbert, and on Instagram at Lori Gilbert Art. And go check out the Liquefy event April 12th. This is going to be at the Boathouse Collective in Costa Mesa. You can find out more information directly from Lori. Lori, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
If you would like to be on the Prestige Living podcast or know someone that would be a great guest, go to www.prestigelivingpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your story.